Close your eyes and let your thoughts drift slowly into a world older than memory, older than sculpture, older than the first written stories humankind ever carved into clay. Tonight, in a quiet journey meant to bring you calm and rest, we travel deep into the world of ancient Sumer, a world where soft river winds flowed over fields of reeds, where tiny lamps glowed inside mud-brick homes, and where the first scribes pressed wedge-shaped symbols into wet clay. Those symbols, cuneiform, carried stories older than any library, older than any kingdom that still stands today. They whispered of kings, cities, stars, storms, and change. But among them existed a quieter, more mysterious memory. A memory of a world that lived before the Great Flood. Let your breathing slow as we step gently into that ancient world. The night is calm over Mesopotamia, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates. You can imagine the delicate shimmer of moonlight reflecting on the water, the distant rustling of reeds, and the soft footsteps of a Sumerian scribe approaching his small writing room. He sits down, exhales gently, and begins pressing symbols into clay. He is not writing fiction. He is not inventing new stories. He is recording a memory passed through countless generations, something his people believed they inherited. From an age that came before the flood reshaped the earth. His tablet begins with a simple idea. There was a world before the waters rose, not a world of magic or impossible beings, but a world that felt different, calmer, older, closer to the rhythm of nature. This world, he believed, was home to the first cities, the first leaders, and the first cultures that taught humanity how to live with the land. He writes slowly, gently, carefully, as though he knows this story is fragile, as though the very act of writing is a way of preserving something from fading forever. Imagine that world now. Let it unfold softly in your mind. The Sumerians believed that long before the Great Flood, early communities settled near rivers, building simple homes of reeds and clay. They fished in quiet waters, gathered wild grains, and watched the skies with patient curiosity. The stars were teachers. The rivers were guides. Life flowed smoothly, harmoniously, with fewer boundaries than the structured civilizations that would come afterward. The Sumerian scribes described this ancient age as peaceful but world shaped gently by nature but forever at the mercy of her changes. Over many generations, small settlements grew into larger ones, and early forms of leadership emerged. Not kings in the way we imagine them, but respected figures, elders, organizers, wise individuals who understood the seasons and the land. Their wisdom, the Sumerians believed, came from observing the world closely, learning from cycles of rain, wind, and river movement. As you let this image settle, imagine that the climate slowly shifts. Rain patterns change. Rivers swell. Seasons grow unpredictable. To the people of the pre-flood world, these changes might have felt like whispers, gentle warnings that something larger was approaching. The Sumerian records hint at this quiet, steady transformation, like the soft rising of water along a riverbank. The scribes did not describe a sudden catastrophe, but a gradual buildup, something that early communities noticed but could not stop. Let the thought drift through your mind like a gentle breeze. When the Sumerians wrote of the flood, they were not only talking about water, but about change itself. Change but separates ages, landscapes, and leaves the world altered forever. Their memories were not about punishment or miracles. They were about survival, adaptation, and remembrance. Imagine now a group of early people gathering at dusk near a wide river. The sky glows with fading light, and old voices share stories about unusual rains and rising waters. These memories become warnings, and the warnings become traditions, preserved orally until the first scribes put them into clay. When the waters finally rose slowly in some places, suddenly in others communities moved to higher ground, carrying with them tools, seeds, stories, and the determination to begin again. This sense of renewal is central in the Sumerian memories. Now picture the floodwaters covering old settlements, smoothing the land, erasing the outlines of earlier homes. Layers of silt settle across the plains. What existed before becomes buried under soil, becoming part of the earth's quiet history. When the survivors eventually return, they find a changed landscape, fertile but unfamiliar. New river paths, new patterns in the land, new challenges. To them, The world before the flood was not mythical. It was simply a different chapter, one they honored through memory. As your breathing remained slow, imagine centuries passing. From those early survivors arose new settlements. Tembia has then cities like Eridu, Uruk, and Kish. But the people who built them still carried memories of the world that came before. When they carved the Sumerian king list, they wrote about rulers who lived before the flood and rulers who lived after. Scholars today understand these numbers not as literal years, but as symbols of legacy representations of ancient dynasties remembered through long chains of storytelling. But for the people of Sumer, these stories preserved continuity. They were reminders that their own civilization did not rise suddenly, but grew from deep roots. Let the stories slow your thoughts now, like calm ripples of water spreading across a quiet lake. The Sumerians believed that after the flood, humanity became more organized. They learned the importance of record-keeping, of tracking seasons, of planning agriculture. Irrigation systems developed. Temples rose. Trade routes emerged. The flood, in their memory, was not only an ending, but a beginning an event that pushed humans to rebuild with greater wisdom and cooperation. Imagine a peaceful morning in ancient Sumer. The sun rises over fields, irrigated by carefully designed canals. Farmers begin their work. Children play near the water. Priests observe the sky from the steps of a zig. All of this, every stone, every field, every story is shaped by the belief that humanity has lived through cycles, that the world before the flood was real, meaningful, and part of the same story. Now imagine, thousands of years later, archaeologists digging through layers of ancient soil. They uncover tablets pressed with cuneiform, each a small voice from long ago. Among them are records mentioning settlements buried beneath silt layers, evidence of ancient floods, and memories that align with real geological events. Through these discoveries, we learn that the Sumerian stories were not fantasies. They were cultural memories shaped by genuine environmental changes. The world before the flood likely refers to early Neolithic societies, early agricultural communities, whose lives were transformed by shifts in climate and river behavior. As you rest deeper into this soothing journey, let yourself picture a quiet scene from that ancient age. Perhaps a family sitting under the shade of a reed hut. The father teaches his son how to weave baskets. The mother grinds grains into flour. The grandmother tells stories of ancestors who lived before the waters changed the land. These moments, though imagined, reflect truths found in the Sumerian worldview. That knowledge is passed gently through generations, that memories of the past guide the future, and that the flood was a symbolic boundary marking a turning point between old ways and new. Let your mind drift through the calm corridors of ancient Sumerian libraries. Wooden shelves hold clay tablets, arranged neatly. Some tablets describe trade. Some describe agriculture. Others describe stars, mathematics, and city laws. But tucked among these are the older stories. Dakin lists the pre-flood traditions, the hints of a world that preceded recorded history. These tablets are gentle reminders that humans have always looked backward to understand their place in the present. In your thoughts now, walk along the riverbank of ancient Eridu, believed by the Sumerians to be the first city ever created. The air is warm. The water moves softly. The distant call of birds echoes across the fields. Somewhere nearby, a storyteller sits with children gathered at his feet. He speaks in a calm, rhythmic tone, the same sort of tone used for bedtime stories. He tells them of a world that existed before their own, a world carried in memory, preserved in stories, and written in clay by scribes who lived before him. He describes how the earth changed, how rivers moved, and how humanity adapted. He tells them that the past is not a mystery to fear, but a guide to respect. His voice is soft, calm, steady, much like the narration you are listening to now. As you continue to relax, imagine that the Sumerian scribes saw themselves not only as record keepers, but also as guardians of memory. They wanted future generations to remember both the world before the flood and the lessons learned after it. Their stories invite us to imagine, not to believe blindly or fearfully, but to wonder gently about the cycles of human existence. Perhaps the greatest gift of these ancient memories is their reminder that humanity has always survived change. The pre-flood world thrived, adapted, and endured. The post-flood world rebuilt, innovated, and grew into the first civilization. And through it all, The quiet resilience of human beings remained constant. Allow that thought to bring you calm now. The Sumerian records, though written on fragile clay, have lasted millennia. They survived storms, wars, decay, and time itself. They reach us today not as strict facts, nor as myths, but as reflections of our shared past stories shaped by nature, memory, and human resilience. Let the story soften even further. Picture yourself lying under a warm Mesopotamian night sky thousands of years ago. The stars shimmer, the breeze is gentle. The river moves slowly. Somewhere nearby, a scribe finishes writing for the night, wipes his stylus clean, and places his tablet carefully among many others. He does not know that people thousands of years later will still read his words. He only knows that stories must be preserved. And now, as the quiet of this ancient world wraps around you, imagine the final fading thought that the Sumerians wrote about the world before the flood, not to claim extraordinary events, but to honor the continuity of life, the changes of nature, and the strength of the human spirit. Let that memory carry you gently toward rest. The story slows. The rivers grow quiet, the lamps dim, and as you slip deeper into calmness, you carry with you the soft, ancient whispers of Sumery, minding you that before every beginning, there was another beginning, waiting patiently beneath the surface of time. Sleep peacefully. Now, let the ancient world fade into silence. Let the calmness grow, and let history watch over your dreams.